But I had to get in my own head because I knew I'm the best. I just need to remind myself. And hey, I want to say something. Everyone back home, everyone, I don't care if you love me or hate me, stand up for yourself. People be trying to bring me down. I stood up and look at me now. No one can bring me down anymore. Stand up for yourself.
UFC Featherweight champion Alexander Volkanovski, pound for pound, one of the greatest fighters in the world today, and without a doubt, the greatest featherweight of all time. I mean, I don't even think that's up for debate anymore at this point. So what makes this 5'6" Australian juggernaut as great as he is? You can talk about his striking and how good his boxing is, his thunderous leg kicks. You can talk about his powerful wrestling, his ground game, and just the relentless pressure that he brings to the table. And all of those things are valid. All of those things make him successful. But ultimately, it's his unbreakable mindset that separates him from the rest of the pack at 145 pounds. And it is that mindset that we're going to explore today here on Champ Mind Studios. So don't go anywhere. Grab an energy drink, hit that subscribe button, and let's get right into it.
If he gets knocked down again, I think it's safe to say Herb might jump in.
That'll do it! And still the best featherweight in the world. Make it 21 in a row for Alexander the Great. There by Volkanovski.
Range, find the right time to enter.
The body work for Volkanovski will be key.
That's nice. Exchanges.
Big thing I've noticed is you haven't seen any jabs.
Not because he took him down.
I think what's most interesting to me is how
All right, guys, welcome back. My name's Mitch, and this is Champ Mind Studios, where we talk about mindset, culture, and habits of some of the most successful individuals and teams, both past and present. We figure out what makes them great from a psychological perspective, and we apply some of those skills into our own goals as we look to unleash greatness. Now, let's talk about Alexander Volkanovski, because this is a guy that has essentially cleaned out an entire division and has dominated for the last 4 years, has beaten all the top contenders at 45. He beat the previous GOAT, Max Holloway, not once, not twice, but 3 times. Prior to that, prior to becoming champion, he beat Jose Aldo, who's also in that GOAT conversation at 45. Beat Chad Mendes, beat the Korean Zombie, Brian Ortega. The list goes on and on. Went up to 55, had a very competitive fight with the lightweight champion, Islam Makhachev, in a fight that many people thought he may have won. Unfortunately, lost a close split decision. And yeah, he got knocked out in devastating fashion in their rematch. But don't forget, I mean, he took it on 5 days' notice. And that's, I mean, the balls to be able to take a fight like that on 5 days' notice, that speaks volumes in and of itself. But listen, he took a bet on himself, and that's part of what makes him great. You know, he took a fight on just a couple days' notice against the best fighter in the world in the weight class above him, and, you know, it didn't work out for him. He got knocked out in devastating fashion, but he gets on the microphone after that. He's already asking to fight again. He's begging the UFC to keep him busy. And they're keeping him busy. Next month, he's defending his featherweight title for the 6th time against a very dangerous young up-and-comer in Ilia Topuria. And that's not an easy fight by any means. I mean, Topuria has great boxing, powerful wrestling, and this is a guy that, you know, if I were to pick out somebody at 145 pounds that I think has the best chance at beating Volkanovski, without a doubt, it's Ilia Topuria. So this is a very interesting fight, especially when you consider the fact that Volkanovski is, I think he's 36 years old now, or about to turn 36, which historically, when you get to that past 35 age and you're a UFC champion, your decline starts coming in spurts, right? And he just got knocked out in his last fight. So we're really going to see what Volkanovski is all about and how he's going to recover from that KO loss. But I think he can get it done, man. I think he can do it because, like I said, he's just got that unbreakable mindset, that unbreakable will. And if anybody can come back from a loss like that as quickly as he's going to do it, it's Volk. So let's examine that. Let's examine what goes into that mindset. And in order to do that, I think we need to go back to where he started out in contact sports. And that's as a professional rugby player in Australia, in the rugby league in Australia. At 5'6", this guy weighed 214 pounds playing professional rugby. He was an absolute tank. He was just running through guys. And listen, I don't know that much about rugby. I mean, the extent of my rugby knowledge goes as far as that one Friends episode where where Ross was playing rugby to impress his British girlfriend and ended up getting his ass kicked by like 4 big rugby dudes from the UK. That's about as much as I've watched when it comes to rugby. But I know it's a tough sport. I know it's essentially like our version of football, American football, without the helmets, without the padding. So imagine how tough that is. Imagine how physically grueling that is to compete in a sport like that at a professional level. So to me, I think that's where he developed that mental toughness. You also got to keep in mind he wrestled for a little bit before playing rugby, and he was actually a national champion in Australia. And that's really where, he developed his mental toughness at an early age. Because listen, you cannot find 2 tougher sports in this world, in this universe, than wrestling and rugby. I mean, the most rugged sports known to man right there. So he was competing at a high level in both of them. And listen, the level of wrestling in Australia is a little bit different than, American wrestling in some of these other countries. But winning a national title is still impressive regardless. Now, am I telling you, because again, the point of this channel is I give you some insights into what makes these people great, and then I show you how you can apply it into your own goals. So am I sitting here telling you that in order to develop this unstoppable mental toughness that you need to play rugby or you need to be a wrestler? No, not necessarily. If you're interested in that, sure. But what I am telling you is there's power outside of the comfort zone. Find something that is going to challenge you, that's going to push you physically, mentally, even spiritually, to get you outside of what is comfortable. And that's where the magic happens. So in Volkanovski's case, that mental toughness that he developed as a rugby player, that still carries through for him to this day. I mean, it's the reason why he's able to just keep going and going and going nonstop, willing to take on any and all comers, isn't afraid to take a fight on short notice. I mean, listen, the guy fought Islam on 5 days' notice. He doesn't care. He's always willing to test himself against the very best to prove himself as the #1 guy. And that leads me right into the next aspect of Volk's entire mentality that I think really sets him apart, and that's his confidence. And listen, confidence is going to be a common theme when we talk about any world champion, any elite athlete competing at a high level. They have to have confidence. You don't have confidence in yourself, you don't believe in yourself, you're not going very far at all. So that might sound obvious, but I really do believe that Volkanovski takes that to an entirely new level, because this is a guy that just has this unrelentless belief in himself. Think back to the first time he fought Max Holloway. At that time, Holloway was where Volk is now. He was pretty much, he was the king of that division, and he was, let's face it, he was untouchable. He was beating everybody. And yeah, Volk just came off a pretty dominant win over Jose Aldo to earn that title fight. But there was not a ton of people in the MMA world that thought Volkanovski was going to win. I mean, maybe a couple of people were betting on him, but Holloway was a pretty decent favorite in that fight. And Volk went out there. He just put the pressure on him. He had a brilliant game plan. He utilized leg kicks to kind of chop Holloway down, slow him down a little bit. But it was a close fight. It was very, very close on paper. And Volkanovski did just enough to take that title. And they went out there the second time. They had that rematch. And in that rematch, I remember vividly thinking that Max Holloway won that fight. It was, again, very close, very razor thin, close decision. But I remember thinking at that time that Holloway did enough to win the rematch. But having said that, Volkanovski, he beat him twice. He had 2 decision wins over, let's face it, one of the greatest featherweights of all time. He could have easily just said, you know what, I'm not fighting this guy again. I beat him twice. What more do you want me to do? But he went out there a third time and really put the stamp on it, made no doubt about it that he's the better fighter, and totally dominated Max. He beat the absolute dog shit out of Max Holloway in that third fight. So then after that, after leaving absolutely no doubt in anybody's mind who the best 145-pound fighter in the world was, he then goes up, he challenges Islam Makhachev for the lightweight title. And this was Islam Makhachev that was fresh off the destruction of Charles Oliveira. This is Khabib's protege. Nobody saw this guy losing anytime soon. And everybody thought that he was just going to go out there and just totally dominate the much smaller Volkanovski, was going to really impose his will with his wrestling base, that Dagestani wrestling style. That didn't happen. That did not happen. Volk went out there and had an absolute war with this guy, to the point where many people, myself included, thought he might have done enough to win that decision. Now, I was also pretty intoxicated at the time watching that fight, and I rewatched it, and I can totally see why Islam won that fight. But having said that, nobody expected that. Nobody expected an all-out war, one of the greatest fights of the year 2023 for that matter, because this is the kind of self-belief that Volkanovski has. This is what he believes is possible. So then after that Islam fight, there's another guy waiting for him in the wings, another young, hungry contender named Yair Rodriguez that was making a name for himself, and he just came off of a destructive win over Josh Emmett. He won the interim title, and a lot of people thought, like, man, if anybody's gonna give Volk a run for his money at 45, Yair Rodriguez has that style. He has a very creative striking style and a very crafty ground game. He's gonna pose some problems. What did Volk do? Volk went out there and absolutely dominated Yair Rodriguez. And that's a testament to his mentality, because he didn't want to just win that fight against Yair Rodriguez. It was important for him to make a statement, and he did just that. I mean, coming off the first loss in several years, first loss in the UFC for that matter, he wanted to prove that he was still the man at featherweight, and he totally dominated Yair Rodriguez. And now, it's kind of funny, like the narrative leading into this Ilia Topuria fight, a lot of people are spinning this narrative that Volkanovski's old, he's declining, how's he going to recover from getting knocked out? And all valid points, don't get me wrong. Those are all valid arguments, because we've seen it several times in this sport. I mean, I use the Tony Ferguson example. This guy, he was not the same after getting knocked out by Justin Gaethje, and went from being on a 12-fight winning streak to a 7-fight losing streak. We see this all the time with aging fighters, and usually 35 is kind of like that magic number, right? But Volkanovski loves that, man. He gets motivated by the doubt. He gets motivated by the critics, because he wants to prove them all wrong, and he knows he can do it. And that is the perfect segue into the third and final aspect of Volkanovski's unbreakable mindset that I want to discuss here today, and that is his ability to keep his composure when his opponents are trying to get through his skin, are trying to get in his head, are trying to rile him up, talk trash to him, do whatever they can to get him pissed off. And he just uses that. He keeps his composure. He's very level-headed, but he uses that as motivation to work just a little bit harder in the gym to kick their ass, to work just a little bit harder in the gym to shut their mouths. And he sees this kid, he sees this young, talented, but cocky kid in Ilia Topuria who's running his mouth, who's talking about how he's going to destroy him, how he's going to embarrass him, he's going to retire him, all this stuff. His girlfriend's talking crap on Ariel Helwani's show. He's already changed his Instagram bio to say that he's the world champion, which, by the way, how ridiculous is that? I mean, listen, people are saying he's manifesting it. He's trying to manifest the world title. It's one thing to write something down on a piece of paper to try to, manifest it and use the law of attraction and impress your subconscious mind. I've talked about that in previous videos. There's power in doing that, but it's another thing entirely to update your Instagram bio to say that you are something that you're not, at least not yet. So I think Ilia Topuria might be setting himself up for failure there, but in Volkanovski's mind, he's loving it. He sees this as an opportunity to humiliate this kid, because if he beats him and beats him in the way that he wants to, Ilia Topuria has to go through the humiliation of updating his profile again and deleting that and changing his record to 15-1. So I don't know if that's the smartest of moves on Ilia Topuria's part. But in any case, that mindset, that ability of keeping calm under pressure, keeping your composure when other people are either intentionally or unintentionally trying to get under your skin, that is something that any single one of us can apply in our day-to-day lives. Because, listen, we've all been there before. We've all been in those interactions, and I'm just as guilty of this. I have responded in ways before where I'm not proud of it. I've lost my cool. I've lashed out at people. I've allowed my anger to get the better of me and let these people win. And that's all you're doing, is you're letting these people win. It gets you nowhere. So next time, let's try to be like Alexander Volkanovski. Let's keep calm under pressure. Let's take it all in, all the verbal jabs, everything that people are saying at us, and let's use it as fuel to the fire to go out there and prove every single one of them wrong. So that being said, guys, if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button, and until next time, let's unleash greatness. Boom!